Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be answering some comments, having conversations about fragrance, and also slightly continuing and expanding on the conversation of free bottles and fragrance influencers. So if you like that type of content, if you like the sit down chit-chatty type, then keep watching. Now, I want to expand and continue the conversation of like fragrance influencers, free bottles, sponsorships, affiliates, and the like, because I think it's an important conversation to have, but I don't want it to be like the only conversation. So that portion of the video will be at the end after I go through comments, mostly because I was racking my brain trying to think of the one example that to me made the most sense to give to you guys. And I thought the example that I did give, and again at the end of the video I'll kind of reiterate what that was good but not the best, and I remembered. So I want to kind of continue the conversation. Everyone had fantastic things to say on that video, so thank you so much. But first, I want to get into answering comments. So if this is your first time tuning in, hi, my name is Kristin. I run this channel called Beauty Meow. It's a primary fragrance related channel. And every few weeks, I like to go through, see what type of comments, ask if you guys have any questions that you'd like me to talk about. And I've got a lot of comments to go through. So I've kind of, found the ones that I think would be most interesting and the most fun to talk about. Whenever I do these videos, please understand if I'm talking about influencers, stuff in the industry, I'm really only, and not really, actually, literally only using myself as an example, and these are my opinions. So just because I say something doesn't mean you'll agree with it. That's totally fine. This is more of a conversation. And sometimes people say things that people are like, I don't really agree with that, and that's fine, especially when we're talking about sponsorships, free bottles, ads, and the like. So the first comment I want to kind of talk about, and I've talked about this before, if I reference any videos, I will link them below if you want to check them out. This comes from my Scent from Above video when I was reviewing the fragrance from Dolly Parton, which I love. And Steve Roseberg asked the question, could a guy pull this scent off? So first, I'm going to answer the question personally, and then I'm going to answer the question more broadly. And yes, I think guys could definitely pull off this fragrance. I think powdery scents, powdery sweet scents actually work really well on guys. I personally think so. But I think the question is if you're asking if a guy can pull this off, I think it generally depends on how you like to smell. So I've talked about gendering fragrance, marketing and fragrances. I did a video or two on that. But when you look at fragrance compositions and fragrance marketing, i.e. fragrance is marketed to men, the men's side of the fragrance counter, and fragrance is designed for the women's fragrance counter, you rarely see an interlap. In fact, the only fragrance I've seen as an interlap, and I could be wrong, has been Memoir d'une Odeur from Gucci and possibly the Tom Ford Black Orchids. But when I worked at Ulta, like there was actually in the men's fragrance aisle, there was a spot for Memoir d'une Odeur. And in the women's section, fragrances, there was also a place for it. But when you look at men's fragrances and women's fragrances, the ones that are marketed to men and women are generally because these fragrances tend to sell better to men and these fragrances tend to smell better to women. Women generally, not just fragrance enthusiasts, people who maybe just have one perfume or buying a gift, generally prefer these compositions, these dominant notes, and the same for men. So if you're asking if this is the type of fragrance that smells like something that would be unisex or you'd find it at the men's fragrance counter or the women's, this is the type of fragrance that I would see sold at the women's fragrance counter. Now, it all depends on how you like to smell. I know a lot of men love to wear just women marketed fragrances. They think they smell amazing. And a lot of women like to wear men's, and people more recently, I've seen a lot of people just embracing wearing whatever the heck they want. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with wanting to stick to you being a man, wanting to smell like, you know, men's fragrances marketed to men, and women wanting to smell like women's fragrances marketed to women. So it really depends on how you want to smell, what makes you confident, the types of fragrances you look for. So I say anyone can wear a Dolly Parton, but how it smells, its composition, its more dominant notes. It's definitely a fragrance that would fit into the types of fragrances, smell-wise, composition-wise, dominant note-wise, in the women's fragrance category. But again, you can wear whatever you want. So the long answer is, yes, I think men could wear it, but if you don't like to smell like fragrances that are marketed to women, no, this wouldn't be a scent that I think a guy would pull off, because if they're preferring this style of fragrance, it's completely different. So that's my answer. I don't know if it's the right answer, but that's the best answer that I can give. That is been going on in my channel to kind of answer questions and kind of expand on the current what the heck is happening at Lancome is I did a video where I said Maison Lancome is discontinuing Jasmine's Marzipan, because I talked to a rep, like called a number, like to their corporate office practically, or when I called they were like, bonjour Lancome, and it was a specific number to find out what was up. And then I take it down and do another video. Anyway, super fun. And somebody, when I called the exact same number, things didn't kind of add up. When I talked to the first person, the same number, the same office, different person said no. And then when I talked to somebody else, they said, oh, this, like 3 different types of information. I just kind of wanted to update you guys and say that I actually called their L'Oreal office and tried to talk to somebody there. They never called me back, and I've never heard anything back from emails. So I still don't completely know. I know that there's talk of more reformulations and regulations because of Jasmine and Rose, so I wouldn't be surprised if they reformulated it. But as far as I know, it's not discontinued. The last information I got from Lancome was Jasmine's Marzipan was not being discontinued, but Oud Bouquet is being discontinued, but I still don't know if I completely agree with that. So I am just tired of fragrance companies, and I understand smaller businesses, but Lancome it's owned by L'Oreal. I mean, L'Oreal practically owns the world. They can have a basic information for anybody, any of their customer service reps, their brand ambassadors, people that work customer service, like higher up specialists, being able to say, yes, this is going away, and no, because that creates a better customer experience. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, oh yeah, this is being discontinued, because then people can buy it. You might actually make more money, but it just seems really frustrating. So I'm just letting everybody know. I know it was like a week or 2 ago I talked about that, still haven't gotten anything back, and I don't want to be on the phone with Lancome again or on a chat for another like hour waiting for this different information. So I don't know what's up, but I do know if you go to Selfridges, there's like 3 new fragrances that they have, and one of them is L'Eau Jasmine or Jasmine L'Eau. And I want to buy these fragrances and review them for you guys, but I'm so just annoyed at Lancome. I don't know if I want to. I don't know. If you guys would like me to review those fragrances for you guys, if you're interested in what I would think about the new fragrances that aren't in the States yet, I'd be more than happy to buy those fragrances for you. At some point, I'll probably purchase them. So if you want to know ahead of time, I'll be more than happy to, but I am definitely very annoyed at Lancome's customer service. Everybody was nice and polite. I'm just annoyed that they can't get like proper information out. And all of this was done within 12 hours. I mean, it's not like I called back several different days. It was the same day, and then no emails back, no calls back, and it's just very frustrating. So that's where we are with that. Now this one, I've actually kind of responded to this comment, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this. So Ryan Bailey on my Wulong Cha review, they commented, Nishane is becoming one of my favorite houses. B612 is magical. I love that fragrance. I actually need to buy a bottle of it. Best lavender modern fougere I have ever smelled. I find Nishane to be on that same level as Roja, in my honest opinion. So I know that a lot of people love Roja and think it's the end-all be-all high-end luxury experience with fragrances, and some people think that it's overpriced. I actually love Roja fragrances, but I can understand people not loving Roja fragrances. So I agree with this, but mostly. So when I think of Roja as a general fragrance brand, I think of the general line, the super expensive, but not ridiculously like sell an organ kind of level. So the fragrances that are like $350 to like $600 to $700, super expensive, but those are more the fragrances that a lot of people have more experience with, because even though those are super expensive, they're more accessibly priced than their $2,000 to $3,500 bottles of perfume. So when I think about, is Nishane on the same level of Roja, I'm thinking about the fragrances in that kind of price bracket. Fragrances like Scandal, Enigma, Amber Oud, even though it's like on the higher end, Enslaved, and a variety of other fragrances I just can't think of the names of right now. And I agree. So the price point of Nishane is cheaper. I would say like $200 to $500 for some of their more expensive fragrances. But that doesn't mean that they smell like more expensive or less expensive. But I will say that the quality, the blending, the composition, I find to be on par with Roja's, again, more like $350 to $700 fragrances. And I agree with that. And I actually like the idea of not thinking price makes something worth it. For me, price dictates a lot. There has to be more than just a good juice, unless the juice is beyond exceptional. There has to be more to it to command that price. A bit of exclusivity, maybe a limited edition batch. You're only going to sell 10 of these bottles a year. So, on top of the prestige of owning it, there's also like a demand. But when we look at the fragrances that everybody kind of smells from Roja, Elixir, Elysium, and I see like the Vetiver, I love the Vetiver Parfum. I see that level of blending, how it smells, how it performs, to be on par with Nishane. Now, not everyone's going to agree with me, but that's what I think. I smell fragrances like Aiguille. I smell fragrances like Oolong Cha. I smell fragrances like 100 Silent Ways, like Zen. And those fragrances have a beauty to them, but they also smell elevated. They also smell a little bit more higher end. And I still need to do a video what I mean about that. I need to be able to properly say words, as if you probably notice, it's my cognitive brain fog with what's going on with me, and I'm not getting into it, has been getting worse. But Nishane to me is on par with those fragrances from Roja in that price point bracket, and they are slightly cheaper. And I think that for some people, spending a lot of money on fragrances is something they will never do, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that that's totally okay. But some people like the idea of venturing into luxury fragrances. I view it like people who, buy purses or enjoy watches. There's kind of those gateway brands, and then you start to really understand and appreciate. And for you, appreciating, it doesn't mean that everyone else has to appreciate, but you start to really value and place a value on certain things, certain prestige of owning this, and just the experience and everything about it is just, the value is there for you. And I think for people who want to start getting into luxury fragrances, but doing it in a way that's a little bit more economical, I think a house like Nishane is fantastic, because you're not sacrificing quality. You're getting a high quality fragrance. But unlike Roja, where it's like $350, sometimes to $750 for the same level of experience in regards to just the juice, you can save like $100, $200, $300 and get a fantastic experience with Nishane. So I would say view some designer fragrances like those luxury bag brands where you're spending $200 to $300 on a bag. And then you have those more higher end luxury bag brands where you're spending, $600 to $800, maybe to $1,200. That to me is like where Nishane is. And then Roja would be, you know, maybe buying a bag from, say, Valentino or Versace, you know, and then like the super higher end are like Chanel and Hermes. So yeah, I mean, for some people spending, you know, like, you know, $15,000 to $30,000 in a Birkin is crazy, and other people really value the prestige. So Nishane for me is kind of like that great kind of bridge in regards to you're getting a good quality fragrance, but you're not quite spending $10,000, but you are spending a lot of money on a perfume, and you are getting a good quality just fragrance. The fragrances there are fantastic. Now, whether or not you want to spend that much money on a perfume is completely different, and whether or not you think Roja is overpriced. If you think Roja is overpriced, you're probably not going to agree with Nishane, and because you're probably going to think spending more than like $100 to $150 dollars a bottle for a bottle of perfume is ridiculous. And I mean, everyone's different. Some people will be like, you know, I think Clive Christian is worth the money, Roja isn't worth the money, Serjoff isn't worth the money, Amouage is worth the money. I mean, everybody is different. So for me to sit here and tell you guys this is how it is, this is again coming back to my opinion. But I think personally, and based off of just what I've tried, because I love the House of Nishane, I've loved them for years. I think that their quality of their, just not the presentation, not the experience, other than just the liquid in the bottles, is very similar or on par with Roja's, at least within the $350 to like $750 range. Because again, Nishanes are like, you know, like $200 to $500. So that's what I think. Not everyone thinks that way, but I definitely agree with it. I've been very impressed with everything I've tried from Nishane, and there's a few other bottles I need to buy very soon because I do generally want to experience them and I love them. So I do agree with Ryan that it is a fantastic house. And it's also a very wearable house too, like those fragrances from Roja. There's something about them, there's kind of an elevated elegance and maturity to these fragrances, but at the same time, they don't smell cheap. They smell like there's at least some thought put into the composition, which I would expect with expensive fragrances, and also the ingredients smell pretty nice. But again, that's just my personal opinion. This last comment is on my 100 Silent Ways review, and this is from Like AV, or LKNAV. If I mispronounce your username, I'm very sorry. Their comment is Tuberosa or 100 Silent Ways white florals? Who is better? I think that depends on what you're looking for. For me, if you like white florals in general, I think between the two, I think 100 Silent Ways has more broad appeal, but I love the maturity that Tuberosa has. So if you were to blind buy, even though I wouldn't recommend blind buying both of these fragrances, I think 100 Silent Ways would be more of a safe blind buy, and I think Tuberosa has more of like a sophisticated maturity to it. And so it depends. Do you like mature fragrances, compositions? Then you probably would prefer Tuberosa. But if you prefer kind of like a variety in your flowers and your florals, and you kind of stay away from more kind of semi-challenging, even though Tuberosa isn't challenging, but mature white florals are something a lot of people have very real feelings about, I would say 100 Silent Ways. It depends, but I think for broad appeal, 100 Silent Ways is better in my opinion than Tuberosa, even though I think they're both fantastic white florals. There we go. So those are the comments. Thank you guys so much for everyone that commented. If I didn't get to your comments or commentary or critique, I'm very sorry. Now I'm going to talk about quickly, I'm going to try not to have this video be too long, continuing the conversation of fragrance influencers. Talked about in different videos, can you trust fragrance influencers? How free bottles work? What's a sponsorship versus affiliate code versus a free bottle? And I'll kind of TLDR it. A free bottle is given with the expectation to review. And a sponsorship is somebody gives you a specific amount of money to do a video. So say, I'm just gonna grab whatever's in front of me, Fresh Rose Floral Toner. Say Fresh gave me this to review for free, but they also gave me, say, $1,000 to do the video. That would be a sponsorship and a free product to review. Affiliate code, if I would say, okay, link below, use my code or use this link, and when you buy this, I get a little bit of money. For transparency, I have never gotten a sponsored video. I've gotten stuff for free to review. I'm not opposed to sponsored content, but like I've said before, and I know you guys don't want to come to like fragrance videos and see, like you guys mentioned, like the dried flower box. If I were to do a sponsorship, I don't want it to be fragrance related. I would want it to be kind of like for wine or for video game or for something else. I feel like it would be, for me personally, how I want to run my channel, a little bit too far to take money and also do a review personally. I don't know if I could do that, but I'm not opposed to doing sponsorships for like web games and like Squaresoft or whatever. I don't know what the people, I wouldn't get it because, I'm sorry, I wouldn't get it because that's not my type of channel and I don't have that type of viewership, which is again, totally fine. I'm not seeking out sponsorships, but that's a sponsorship and I don't have an issue with people having sponsorships, but I always want everything to be disclosed. Free bottles are something that's just, and I talked about this on If You Can Trust Fragrance Reviewers and other things, within the industry, let's just use fragrance as an example, between people that run popular Facebook groups, popular Instagrams, fragrance influencers on the tubes of you, fragrance reviewers that aren't influencers on YouTube, people that have blog posts, people that own magazines and are writers or editors. I mean, free bottles are everywhere, everywhere. You walk into a sales associate like Macy's, they get gratis. It's just, gratis is part of the game. And it's, as long as you understand that it's there and you understand the power dynamic, I don't have an issue with it. The original analogy, or not expectation, again, my brain fog is just like 10 out of 10, like I can't remember basic words. The original analogy that I used, or the example that I used, was if you go to a fragrance counter, say at Neiman Marcus, if you shop at these like super high-end beauty boutiques, department stores, I mean, these people are dressed like they're going to like the most fanciest of events, the most expensive of restaurants. They're wearing suits, they're wearing fine dresses, everything, they're immaculately composed because they have to be. So you walk up to a fragrance counter and you see a salesman, and I'll use, somebody wearing a suit, for example, and you see the salesperson, the sales associate, and they're sitting there and they're holding a bottle of perfume, or they're standing behind the counter and they're dressed, obviously, like they work there, and they start talking to you about fragrance. You know the dynamic going into that situation, that you are customer, they are sales associate. And so you can decide to engage or disengage from them, and you have that right and you have that power. You can tell them not to waste your time. Say you only have 5 to 10 minutes to jump in and jump out. You might not want to waste your time engaging with a sales associate. You might be perfectly confident, have more knowledge, and just be way more comfortable browsing on your own. And you can say to that person, please leave me alone, I don't need any help right now, or you can choose to engage. Now, if you engage with that person, that doesn't mean that they are only talking about fragrances that they're being told to talk about. Obviously, there's, things that they have to sell and metrics, but that doesn't mean that they aren't giving you honest advice, passionate. They might be super passionate. They may be completely engrossed and in love with a fragrance. And you know that they're selling you something, but that doesn't mean that they aren't being honest with you when they say, this is the fragrance I love the most. It's my most favorite. And you understand that you're being sold something, but that doesn't mean that they aren't being honest and transparent, and they aren't genuinely enthusiastically in love with fragrance. In fact, one of my favorite sales associates who I met at Neiman Marcus, who I consider to be more of a friend, like, we would talk about fragrance and he'd be like, look, don't buy anything from me. He's like, I just want to show you something. You don't have to buy it. And like, sometimes I wouldn't and sometimes I would. But he would just get so excited to talk about fragrance. And that's what he loved. And that's why we had so much fun, because he just wanted to talk about fragrance. And that's why he worked there. He worked at that fragrance counter. He worked in other departments, but he wanted to work at the fragrance counter because he just loved perfume. He loved fragrance, and he just wanted to talk to somebody about it. And I think that's also why I bought so much from him, because it was so nice to talk to somebody who was genuinely passionate about fragrances. And he'd be like, do not smell this, it smells like garbage. This is sweet, try this. I mean, like, I trusted him, and I've trusted him, you know, as a friend. Like, I talk on the phone. It's been a while since I've talked to him, but like generally, like, I know his job was to sell me something, but I didn't feel bad about it because I understood the power dynamic, and I was able to communicate with somebody who had a genuine enthusiasm and passion for fragrance. Now, say you're the person that you go into a store and you don't want to talk to a sales associate. You don't want to be sold. It's not your thing. So you walk past a fragrance counter and you're in the same store and you see somebody there dressed a little bit more casually. Maybe they're wearing a polo shirt, like a nice pair of slacks and like some sneakers, and they're kind of smelling fragrances, and you're there smelling fragrances, and you want to talk to somebody about fragrance, but you don't want to talk to a sales associate. So you start interacting with this person and you're like, hey, yeah, have you smelled this? I love this. And you have a really wonderful conversation, and they're like, this is my favorite fragrance, and you try it and you genuinely love it, and you're like, you know, I think I'm going to buy this. And they're like, okay. And then they walk around the counter, they grab it, and they ring you up. That is just very untrustworthy. That's shilly, that's dishonest. And that's the example I used before, is you don't want to be sold, but you've been tricked. You've been tricked because you didn't understand the power dynamic. You thought you were talking to somebody else just casually about fragrances. You didn't know you were being sold by a fragrance salesperson, sales associate. And some people don't want to be sold, and that could ruin the entire experience for you. And going to YouTube, what I was saying is when you go to, like, say, a channel like mine, I am a consumer review channel. I review fragrances not as an authority, not as an expert, as somebody who likes fragrances, loves fragrances, and wants to talk about it. Whether or not you think I'm good at it is completely up to you guys. That's not for me to tell you that I'm good at it, but I'm not an authority in any capacity. But I do get free things to review, so it would be very disingenuous for me not to tell you that I got something for free, to talk about how much I love it, because I generally am honest, 100% honest in my videos. Whether or not you guys agree with that, that's for you guys to decide. It's not for me to demand of you. That's for me to prove to you. But I think it would be very disingenuous if I only reviewed free bottles and I never told you, or kind of hid in the description box that they were given to me for free. That's why I like to tell you guys up front. And that way you can decide, no, I don't want to be sold something. I just want to learn, and not like you learn much, but maybe you'd learn the name of a bottle of perfume. But I understand that. So a great example of like a sales associate giving you a knowledgeable, fantastic, enthusiastic, genuine experience with fragrance, but you know that you're being sold something, is Lucky Scent. Lucky Scent has a fantastic social media presence when it comes down to reviewing and recommending fragrances. And like, I would be the person that would be on the other end of the fragrance counter wearing the polo shirts and slack and sneakers, and Lucky Scent would be the sales associate there in like a suit or a nice dress saying, let's talk to you about perfume. A lot of people genuinely love, and rightfully so, Lucky Scent's YouTube video, because they know first and foremost that when they're going to that Instagram, that YouTube, that social media page, this is a site that sells fragrance. That is their business. That is where they make their money. And the people that they've chosen to be kind of the faces of their social media are sales associates. These people are paid to sell you fragrances, but they are so knowledgeable, they're so passionate, they're so charismatic that you know that they're just talking to you about fragrances that they love, and they're doing it in a fantastic way. I love watching their content, but you're not feeling like you're being shilled. You're not feeling like you're being mistreated or tricked, because you know the dynamic that you're walking into when you watch those videos. If you watch a video of mine all the way through and I say I got this for free, you're going to be like, well, that was a waste of my time. I refuse to watch free bottle reviews. That's not what I want to do. But if you go to a website's perfume boutiques Instagram or their website, you're knowingly walking into that fragrance counter, that department store, and you are walking up to the sales associate and you're getting their information. So if that's the type of content that you're okay with, you're consenting to that kind of interaction. And the consent part is really important, because when you watch a reviewer like me, somebody who does not own a fragrance brand, somebody that does not work for a fragrance brand, somebody that sits on the floor behind some really old cabinets that need to be desperately replaced and talking about fragrance, you don't know if I'm coming to you as a sales associate or as an enthusiast. And that's where I think the fragrance influencers need to kind of be a little bit more transparent, a little bit more open. And I'm not saying that people are doing it wrong. I'm just thinking that people are so scared to say, I got this for free, or this is a paid promotion. When you look at the type of people who love Lucky Scents videos, when you look at the type of people who go and consume that type of content, they don't care. What they care about is feeling like they're not being, like the wool is being pulled over their eyes. And I think that being scared of saying, this is sponsored, this is an affiliate link, this is a free bottle, is just really unnecessary, because nobody cares. And if they do care, they shouldn't be tricked. And so that's the kind of example or analogy I wanted to use. It's like somebody like me who obviously does not work for a fragrance brand, does not own a fragrance brand, does not work in the industry. You come to my channel, you obviously don't think I work for a fragrance company. So if I sell you something that was given to me or of sponsored content, it can leave a bad taste in your mouth. But if you go to a website or a social media page by a company, you know it, and so you're not worried about being sold because you already kind of walked into that situation and you understand this is a salesperson. But that doesn't mean that they aren't passionate, that doesn't mean that they aren't knowledgeable, and that doesn't mean that they don't genuinely love what they're talking about. And I do genuinely love Lucky Scents social media. The people that do it are just so knowledgeable, they're so passionate, they're so charismatic, and they do it in such a way that makes you excited to try new things. At least that's what I think. So that was the example I wanted to give. I don't know if I did this properly. And again, when I'm talking about other fragrance YouTube reviewers, I'm not pointing fingers at people when I say this. As long as people disclose, you can do whatever you want. You want to get paid money to do a review, that's fine. Just say, hey, this, this video is sponsored, but I'm just grabbing something. I'm not going to grab that because you guys will judge me based on what I'm drinking right now. Here we go. This video is sponsored by Cat Hat. Cat Hat, this is that scents from a hand. I'm going to do a video today and sponsored by this specific Cat Hat brand, and it's scents from a hat. So we're going to choose a fragrance, and a big thank you to Cat Hat for supplying the hat for this video. That's really bad. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm sorry. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other comments, critiques, criticisms, or you want to continue the conversation of anything I've mentioned below, let me know in the comment section. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. See you guys next time. Bye.